friends, Deanna here with Homestead and Chill, and happy spring. So we're about to plant our tomato seedlings in the next couple of weeks, and last summer we created this really awesome tomato trellis and training system that was a huge success. We were just so thrilled with it. So I thought I would show you how to set up that system today. So in this video, I'll walk you through all the supplies that you need, how to set up the trellis, as well as how to use it throughout the growing season, including how to prune the tomatoes and tuck them in through this weave. I'll also make a written blog article that has step-by-step details and more photos. If you want to reference that, I'll link it in the caption. So this system is essentially a combination between a Florida weave and a single leader or a single stake, single string method. And I'll explain that more in a moment, but it's really versatile too. You can do this even though we're showing it in a raised garden bed, can do it for in-ground beds, and you can use a variety of materials beyond what we've shown today. Once you get the general idea of how to use it and set it up, it's really flexible to fit into your garden. But the one key thing to note is it's best to use for indeterminate or the vining varieties of tomatoes, the ones that will continue to keep growing taller and taller throughout the season, since we do some light pruning on this system. In comparison to determinate or bush varieties of tomatoes, those are best left in tomato cages, and I do have a video on how we built really sturdy, inexpensive DIY tomato cages out of remesh panels, so you can check that out if you're interested in those. So on to the supplies that you'll need. The first thing is some sort of frame with a horizontal top support that is at least 6 feet off of the ground or the soil level. We created a redwood 2x2 frame here, which I'll show you more in a moment of the details of that, but feel free to use other materials that are more readily available to you. You could use metal conduit pipe, other types of wood, whatever works for you, as long as it's pretty sturdy and again has that horizontal top support at least 6 feet tall. And then the next thing you'll need are stakes. So these are 8-foot tall stakes. Our beds are about 1.5 feet deep, and so they are about 6.5 feet above the soil level. So 8-foot stakes or whatever height you need, so that the stakes meet the top of your support frame. And you'll need 1 per tomato. We're going to end up putting 4 tomatoes in this bed, so there is a stake at the base of each one, plus an extra one for each end. So we're using 6 total for this 4 tomato system here. And just like the frame, feel free to use different materials. If you can't find proper stakes, you could use metal conduit or rebar or something like that for these guys, as long as it's something that is durable and sturdy that you can, drive or bury down into the ground. And then the last couple of things are just some twine and some ties. So this is just, some jute twine. So we're going to use this to create the weave portion. And then we have this reusable soft wire garden tie. You could also use tomato clips, that they have like specialized clips for that. But this is for securing the main leader up the stake. So we created our A-frames by using some 2x2 redwood that we happen to have around, and we just cut the angles at the top so that they would nestle together nicely, added some screws and a little L bracket on the end for additional support, as well as this little cross beam or piece that comes across to serve as the a little horizontal support between the legs. And then we also cut the bottom feet or the legs to sit flush on the corner 4x4 supports nestled nicely inside the raised bed. And so we came up with this design intentionally because I didn't want it to be permanent, but you can feel free to permanently install your structure so that it's actually attached to your raised bed. I didn't want to drill holes into the raised bed, and I also wanted it to be able to come apart, for putting it away during the off season when we're growing other crops here, as well as be able to move it to different beds in different growing seasons. We try our best to practice crop rotation, so we're not putting our tomatoes in the same beds year after year. And despite this not being permanently installed, it definitely still is sturdy. Again, feel free to beef it up however you see fit for your climate, but between the stakes being down 1.5 feet in the soil, they are thatched on top to the structure. It kind of sways a tiny bit, but it's definitely not going to be tipping over or going anywhere. Plus, once the tomatoes grow in and get their root structure and climb up it, they provide it some added stability as well. So now let me show you how we set this up at the beginning of the season. So now we're setting the frame in the bed. It rests right on the corner supports inside the bed. And then we add the 2 end stakes on the outside of the trellis, which helps kind of support the frame from swaying back and forth as much. And then I'm putting in the stakes. In this system, you want to space your plants at least 18 up to 24 inches apart. Ours are about 21 to 22 inches apart here. And next I'm just using pieces of that jute or hemp twine to secure the top of every stake to the frame. And I'm tying it around quite a few times so it is nice and secure. And notice I'm standing on a board rather than standing on my soil, just so I'm not compacting my soil. Next, it's time to add the rows of horizontal string to create the weave. We found that it works best if I help hold the string nice and tight against the stake while Aaron wraps around it, just keeping everything nice and tight as we go. And you want to add a row about every foot up the stake. Just to get going for the season, we only added 3 rows of twine right now, but we will continue to add more as the plants grow, ending up with about 6 rows in total. All right, now let's talk about how to actually use this system through the growing season. So as I mentioned, it's a combination of a Florida weave system and a single stake or a single leader. So briefly what those are is that on a traditional single leader system, you would be heavily pruning your indeterminate tomato, removing every single side branch and sucker just down to a single leader. Then that single leader is going to be trained up either a stake or sometimes a string if you want to use the lower and lean system. And the plants are spaced really close together, as close as 12 inches apart. And they'll just continue to get super tall through the growing season. And the more you prune your tomatoes, the fewer fruit they do produce, but in turn, it's higher quality fruit, so better flavor, more moisture content, so don't be too nervous about pruning. However, that system does take a lot more energy and a watchful eye to make sure you're pruning every single sucker. And then on the other hand, in a Florida weave system, the plants are placed in between stakes and grown up twine like this. So the plant would be here, and then it would be woven and kind of sandwiched in between layers of twine, hence the weave name, as it grows, with some moderate pruning involved. So then with this hybrid system, what we're gonna do is end up planting a tomato at the base of each stake. So 1 stake per tomato, and then with some moderate pruning, we'll go ahead and train that main central leader up the center stake with those soft garden ties, but then allow some of the sucker branches or side branches to grow in and weave those up in between. So then this area is going to have some branches from this tomato and from this tomato. And then down here, we were able to keep these stakes just a little closer to the ends of the beds because these little windows are only going to have the side branches from this tomato right here. So if you're not familiar with tomato suckers, I'll clip in a photo here. Unfortunately, I don't have one to show you in person, but essentially it is the little side branches that attempt to grow right at the junction between a main stem and a little leafy branch. It'll grow right in the nook there. And to remove those, all you have to do is pinch them off or break them off. And we try to do that when they're fairly small because they're called suckers because they actually draw energy from the plant. So that goes back to that idea of the more you prune them, the better quality fruit you have because they're not suckering and taking so much energy into so many branches on the plant. And so in this system, we do want to remove at least half of the suckers, and I'll clip in a video from last summer where I was getting our plants going for the season and I kind of showed a little bit better about where we chose to leave and remove some suckers on our plants. So I'd remove one here, but I let this one go that's going up between the stem. I removed one here, but I'm letting this one go and it'll come up. I had removed one in the front, and then I've got one now on this side because I was trying to sort of even them out. So I had a couple over there, a couple over here, but then continued to remove the sucker here at that spot and then removing them as we go up. So this one will end up having, if I counted right, about 4 or 5 kind of side suckers and then the main branch. So kind of the same idea over here. Took it off the bottom, leaving this one, removed, leaving one more maybe up here. And so as the season goes on, the plants will definitely reach the top of the trellis. They may even start to flop over the top a little bit, and we just let them do their thing up there. But then towards the very end of the growing season, I think about late September into October, when we knew we wanted to harvest the rest of our fruit soon, that's when we went ahead and topped the main leader and just gave the trellis a haircut right along the top line there, because you really don't want to top that main growth leader until you're done with the plant, because it signals it to stop growing, and instead it focused the rest of its energy on ripening those remaining fruit for us instead. So all in all, we really love this system, and I hope that you guys too. There are so many perks to it. I love the way it looks. It's neat, it's tidy, but also it's really easy to see the fruit for harvesting. The increased airflow and reduced foliage really helps produce fewer pest issues and disease issues. And I like that there's extra space for other things in the bed too. All this open space in front and behind the plants, we can tuck companion plants like basil and marigolds or beans and peppers, all kinds of wonderful things. It's also a really easy system to use and pretty hands-off, but you do want to check your plants about once a week to tuck, tie, or remove any branches just because, you know, getting them into here, you want to do it when they're still fairly small so you don't break your branches. If they get way too long and it's difficult to get it into a tier, I would just wait and skip it and go up into the next one. All right, folks, and that's it. So I really hope that you enjoy this tomato training system as much as we do. If you try it out, let us know in the comments or let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, we really appreciate you tuning in today, and we'll see you next time. Be sure to also check us out on homesteadandchill.com for even more gardening tips and information, and have a fantastic tomato growing season ahead.